Hello, hello. Oh, I see participants coming. Welcome. This is
Yay!
exciting. I am super, super psyched. Welcome to a virtual lunch. It has been a bit since we have done a virtual lunch here.
Yeah.
Has it?
Awesome.
I
Yeah.
want to say it. I don't remember the last time we did one.
Was I supposed to bring food?
No, you have
No.
tea. And
Yeah.
I are
I have my tea. I
getting
have tea.
lunch after.
Well, we're getting lunch after, but I have Starbucks.
There you go. Okay, so as long as we have some sustenance, we're all right.
Hey, Kaden. All right. Well, I'm going to get going because we do have some time to get going. But first of all, welcome to Syosset Libraries. I was about to say Turn the Page podcast, but we're not doing that. We do have a podcast though, and
We do.
Welcome to Syosset Libraries virtual lunch with the author. You can be having lunch. You cannot be having lunch. You could be drinking coffee or tea. You could be drinking whatever you want. We don't know because you're in webinar mode. Hi, Greg. But that said, here are you're drinking beer.
Oh, nice. I mean, it's
yeah.
St. Patrick's Day, so.
Yes, it is St. Patrick's Day. So just a few housekeeping rules before we get going. And this is really, really important. This is a fun, friendly event. We are here to chat with Deanna Raybourn about the latest Veronica Speedwell book and her process and everything awesome about her and Veronica and her books, which means that we keep our language friendly and encouraging. You can interact with us through Q&A. But any semblance of hate speech, racism, abusive language will have you booted from the meeting, which is not why we're here. So we do want to make those abundantly clear. We are not expecting that. We are expecting a wonderful lunch with Deanna. So again, that said, we're going to invite Deanna to introduce herself, talk about this new Veronica book, and Stacy and I can direct your questions to her. Welcome, Deanna.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. How many events is this now with Syosset? Is this
a lot?
Right? It feels like a lot. Like I get to see you guys on a regular basis, which is always a joy. So we're chatting because last week, I guess time just kind of doesn't mean anything when you've launched a book. Last week, A Sinister Revenge came out. That is book 8 in the Veronica Speedwell series. And Veronica is a globe-trotting Victorian lepidopterist who has a bad habit of falling over dead bodies. And she, encounters another one. But this is a murder from long, long ago. This was a sleeping murder. And so she has been she's not even recruited as much as she just sort of stumbles into the situation and makes herself available because Veronica loves nothing more than sussing out the juicy details of a good killing. And so she finds herself at the country estate of her sidekick and bestie and bedmate, Stoker. And so he was an aristocrat, grew up on a family estate, and she gets to visit for the first time. And there are all sorts of hijinks that ensue during this house party. It's Downton Abbey, but with murder.
I like that. That sounds really, really good. And first of all, can we talk about how the last book ended?
It's kind of like having the recap before season 2.
We'll talk about it.
I feel like, that was sort of, and again, we do encourage audience Q&A about the book. So please.
We have the chat and the Q&A. If you want to be anonymous, Q&A.
Yes. And we will make sure to address it. But so the last book kind of ended at some interesting places. And I know some readers were absolutely blown away and they were like, what just happened? So if you want to chat a little bit about that and sort of how it led into this new one.
Okay, so over the course of the books, we've had Veronica. Each book, she gets to solve some murders. She gets to solve a crime of some sort. But the overarching story that goes through all the books is her relationship with Stoker. He is, like I said, he's her bedmate. He's her partner in crime. They are besties. They have this really amazing relationship, but it is not without its trials and tribulations. And so at the end of the last book, they have this, kind of crisis in their relationship. And Stoker goes off to have a sulk, as he does from time to time. And Veronica receives an invitation to go with his brother, who is one of her dearest friends. She and Tiberius get along beautifully. Tiberius is a Viscount. Somebody on Twitter referred to him as a disaster buy. And I think that's the perfect description of Tiberius, because he is just a complete chaos monkey. He's wealthy, he's handsome, he gets away with anything, he sleeps with anybody, but he manages to do so in this effortlessly charming way. And she receives an invitation to go with Tiberius to go to Italy and do some butterfly hunting for the summer. So the book ends with the reader not knowing, did she choose to go and, kind of track down Stoker, even though he didn't necessarily want her to come along, or did she choose to go where she was invited with Tiberius and go butterfly hunting? And so that's where this book opens up, is resolving that question, because man, did readers have thoughts about that.
We do already have an audience question. Caden asks, how do you get into the mindset for writing?
Oh, you know what? I'm never completely out of the mindset for writing. I think, a lot of people feel like they've got a book inside them, or they have an idea for a book. And, the thing is, that's the easy part. Anybody can come up with an idea for a book. And if you do this professionally, you come up with half a dozen before breakfast. Like I got one last week, an idea for a new series while I was brushing my teeth. I'm never going to do this series, but it was an idea for one. And the thing that separates you from the folks who have the ideas and the folks who are published authors with successful careers is it's the discipline of putting your tail in the chair and getting the book written. And so there is a certain element of, I'm in the mindset to write because I have deadlines to meet, because I have contracts to fulfill, because I made a promise saying I would write. And so I get in there and I write. You don't always, you can't sit around and wait for the muse to tap you on the head. That's one of those things that you'll be sitting and waiting a real long time, and probably getting drunk a lot if you're waiting for that to happen. And that's where this myth of the tortured artist comes from. Is all these really self-indulgent guys like Ernest Hemingway. I'm going to go shoot something, or I'm going to go drink myself into oblivion in Paris, just because they're struggling. A lot of it comes down to just getting in there and getting the work done. And to be fair to Hemingway, yes, he did have some hacks for getting himself into the chair when he needed to. So, he had a few little tips and tricks.
So I have another audience question. What was the inspiration behind writing the books? I'm trying to start my own writing, but I can get the hang of finishing out. I can't get the hang, I think, of finishing out a book. Skull emoji. Love it.
I do love the emoji.
On people starting book writing. Thanks.
Okay. So the hardest part, absolutely, is getting that first book written. And that's why I think the key to it is you don't stop. You don't go back and try to fix anything. You don't edit. You don't go back and polish and make it pretty. You sit down and you start writing the book, and you write all the way through until that book is done. Because that is absolutely the only way to prove to yourself that you can create a full story. When the story is on the page, and Nora Roberts is famous for talking about this. She says, I can edit a mess. I can't edit a blank page. So no matter how bad it is, free yourself from the idea that it has to be readable or logical or engaging or good in any way, shape, or form. Just start getting the story down on paper. When the story is done, then you go back and you start tearing it apart. Then you start stitching it back together. You start Frankenbooking, and you make it better. You polish it up and you make it pretty, but you've got to get the bones in place first. And there is nothing like the confidence boost that comes from getting that first book finished and going, holy crap, I wrote a book. And it doesn't have to be anything more than 50 or 60,000 words, as long as you've got the full story. You've got a beginning, you've got a middle, and you've got an end. Get yourself to that point. If you need kind of more motivation or you need accountability, you can have an accountability buddy, somebody that you write with, where both of you check in each day going, did you write? And I say this as a person who does not believe that you have to write every day. I think that's ridiculous. A lot of people are not physically able to do that. Some people don't have the time away from their jobs or their childcare, or their health doesn't permit, whatever. Do not feel like you have to write every day if that's not your life. But write consistently and move your story forward. And once you've done that, then go back and fix it up. You could try a program like NaNoWriMo. Every November, there is National Novel Writing Month. And a lot of people are able to kind of see a story through for the first time, because you commit to clearing out your calendar in November and writing as much as you can through the month of November. I think the goal is ultimately a 50 or 60,000 word novel, something like that. And some people, that is a great system that works for. Other people are like, I'm only going to write on Saturday mornings, and I'm going to write for 1 hour, and at the end of the year, I'll have a book. Whatever works for you is fine. Just, it's about getting in there and actually doing the work. You can keep yourself busy for a decade with ideas for what you want to do with this book, but nothing takes the place of actually doing the work. And you're not actually going to make a huge amount of progress till you get stuck in and doing the work, because actually doing the writing will also lead you to a lot of the answers. It leads you through figuring out who the characters are, how you want them to interact. And it teaches you who you are as a creator. And you're going to learn so much more from actually doing the writing. So the most important thing is just liberate yourself from the idea that it has to be good, because it won't be. I mean, it's fine. Nobody's first drafts are great. Don't worry about it. Embrace the crap. It's fine. It can be crap. Embrace it. Celebrate it. It's awesome.
That is great advice. And I know a lot of people come to these, or sometimes ask, we do writing workshops every now and then. And just to do that. And it's funny because you made me think of Nora Roberts again, because she was talking like, she just had to push herself to just, you want to know what? I'm going to commit to just writing a little bit every day, because I have to do it to get her motivated. Yeah.
And there is so much really terrible writing advice out there. And the problem is that no piece of writing advice fits everybody. We are artists. It's idiosyncratic. The process, there is no one size fits all process. That's not a thing. And anybody who tells you that there's one way to write is trying to sell you a book on how to write, because there's no such thing. And a lot of the advice that is kind of traditional or conventional wisdom about how to write is either ableist, or it's privileged, or it doesn't take into account that some people are neurodivergent, or some people don't have the money to do this, or some people don't have the health to do this. And it's just like, well, you have to do it this way. And, it assumes that you've got somebody who's going to do the housekeeping, or that you've got the wherewithal to, sit down and put your tail in the chair for 6 hours a day. And some people, the vast majority of published writers still have day jobs. I'm extremely privileged that I'm able to do what I do, and this is all that I do. But I am also really aware that that's privileged. And I'm never going to say to somebody, oh, well, if you can't write the way I write, then you're not a real writer. No, if you're making a story, you're a writer. So liberate yourself from the idea that there's one way to do this, man. It's you have to be kind to yourself in this process. You absolutely do.
So I think we have another Q&A question, and we have a bunch in the chat.
Stacey, they're all related, so I love it. Okay. We'll start with the question from Q&A. Janet says, I enjoy following some of my favorite authors on Pinterest. They post outfits for characters, dream actors for parts, settings, etc. I haven't been able to find you, wondering if you have an account and I just can't find you, but it ties in because we see what's behind you.
No, I don't have a Pinterest account anymore. I did for a while, and ultimately just decided to get rid of it, because the algorithms were so screwed up and it took so long to find anything. And I was like, I'm not having fun here. So I just got rid of the account. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. And I had to, because Twitter's kind of a dumpster fire right now, I had to revive my, my blog on my website, and I post, content there sometimes, which I will probably do a little bit more of in the future. But no, Pinterest just wasn't doing it for me.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's interesting because Pinterest kind of has an ebb and a flow. And somebody, let's see, I want to see because, okay. So Tanis says, I love that Veronica is a woman ahead of her time. Do you think she would like living in today's society, or she's a Victorian through and through? And then follows up by, and can we talk about those mood boards behind you?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so Veronica is a woman ahead of her time, but she's also very much a woman of her time because she was inspired by an actual Victorian lepidopterist by the name of Margaret Fountain, who ran around the world collecting butterflies, selling them to other collectors, and making her living that way. And the thing that was interesting about Margaret is not only was she able to earn a living in kind of a really genteel way, which it was very hard for ladies to earn a living. In the Victorian period, kind of by definition, if you earned a wage, you weren't a living. If you earned a wage, you weren't a lady. So the fact that she was able to do this in a fairly genteel occupation was kind of kudos to her for making that work. But she also was very independent, very intrepid, and did her own thing with regard to romantic relationships. She had physical relationships before marriage, interracially, around the world, interclass. So Margaret very much did her own thing. There were a fair number of Victorian women who weren't just sitting in the parlor making lace and serving tea to the vicar. They were exploring the world, or they were running suffragist campaigns, or they were printing newspapers. They were doing all kinds of interesting things. They're just not the people that we hear about the most. They're not the people we see the most. So that's why I'm glad that we're starting to get these TV series where you see women going out and getting law degrees, in Victorian times, or working on newspapers and things like that, breaking down barriers as far as becoming doctors, and because those were women having actual Victorian experiences. Which is exciting to me that we're kind of rediscovering who these people were. I think Veronica is one of those people who would thrive no matter where you put her. Like, you drop her in the middle of a glacier and she would figure it out. She would figure it out. That's who she is. Okay, so you want to talk about the mood boards? We'll talk about the mood boards. That's fine. This one over here is my very first murder board, and I'm so happy. It's got, you can see right there, it's actually got red yarn all over, like a proper murder board. This is only half of it because it's the book I'm working on right now, and it's just the recurring characters in the Veronica series. Beyond that is where the murder victim and potential suspects and everybody else are located. So these are just various pictures that I was able to pin up because I wanted to have a good time. I like an element of play when I'm brainstorming, and that's play. So I got to do that. And this over here, that one is just a few pieces. There's an illustration that a reader sent me of Veronica, and just a few other bits and pieces over there. Yeah, and that's what that is. And there's can you see the painting of Lucifer, the fallen angel?
Ooh,
I'm not sure.
Where?
I'm not sure if the camera switches over there, and mine's blocked right now. So let me see if I can see. Let me close that. Yeah, you can. Okay. So right there, that is Cabanel's fallen angel. And there is a description at one point when Veronica sees Stoker naked for the first time. She thinks about this painting, Cabanel's fallen angel, and for reasons. So that mostly have to do with thighs, but this is a friendly lunchtime show, so we're going to keep it clean. And then right here is a photograph that was taken by Lady Haywarden, who her first name was Clementina, which you have to love that, right? So Clementina, Lady Haywarden, was a photographer, an amateur photographer in the Victorian period. She did some beautiful shots. And this is a shot she did of her two daughters. And it's from behind, and the sisters have got their arms around each other, and it's really lovely. So yeah, just a few little bits and pieces there. But yeah, this is the active murder board, which I'm very proud of.
We have so many questions coming in. Stacy, I'm going to get the one in the Q&A if you want to look through chat to see We have something from Kaden. What do you like to do in your spare time? This is something I'd like to know. What do you like to do in your spare time? Do you have spare time?
When I am really motivated, I take French lessons and I play around with a little gouache painting, but on a regular basis, like daily, it's tarot and yoga. So yeah, I have a fairly bad tarot habit. I just ordered another deck last night, which is going to take me up to more than 20 decks. And I posted pictures of it. Like last month, I posted a picture of like 13 decks. And I said, is this a problem? And then one of my friends who has over 200 was like, no, keep going. So I have a lot of enablers amongst my friends, but yeah, so that's what I do.
What decks do you favor? Like, do you favor the more I mean, this is just a question. I'm sorry, we're gonna try to get to everybody, but now I want to know because like, I find tarot decks gorgeous. Stacey, I got
always pretty.
They are. Okay, so
yeah.
I have bought from chain bookstores. I have bought from I have backed Kickstarters for unique decks, and I have ordered from websites where artists are doing mass produced, but they're doing beautiful artistic decks. The one deck that I will absolutely recommend to anybody, especially if you're looking to start, is Saint Soleil, ST.SOLEIL. It's a website, and they have a deck for beginners, which is one of the most beautiful things I have ever. It's the deck I go back to. It's the deck that kind of unlocked everything for me, and I love it, love it, love it. And then I post draws a lot on Instagram, like what I drew for that day. I'll post from that day's tarot pull, and occasionally from an oracle card, just because I think it's fun. But that Saint Soleil deck is magic. Also Ritual Planner, which is WRITUAL Planner. They have a couple of good decks, one that is photography based. And then one that is the Rider-Waite Smith deck, but it's watercolors instead of the really kind of harsh, bright colors.
Ooh, that sounds pretty.
Yeah. I've got one coming from England that I'm really excited about. It's in the post right now. And then another one that should be coming in another day. And I did a Kickstarter backing for, it is a Winnie the Pooh tarot deck, but it's based on the original Winnie the Pooh illustrations.
Oh, I like it.
So cute. It's so cute. But I thought you were gonna say it was based on the horror movie that they came out with recently. Oh my god, no. No.
Wow.
I Winnie the Pooh. Yeah.
All of my decks are I gravitate towards beautiful decks with really light, bright energy. I don't do like the Thoth or any of those, even the traditional Rider-Waite Smith is a little bit harsh for me. I like just really beautiful, pleasant, happy decks. So that's my vibe. And I put recommendations up on Instagram and Twitter and whatnot. So so we can chat tarot in those places if you like. But yeah, the Saint Soleil, highly recommended. And they are it's not cheap. It's about $70. So if you're looking for an entry-level deck, you can certainly find less expensive ones than that. But it is well worth the money, and they're doing pre-orders for, I think the 4th edition is getting ready to drop. So yes.
Yeah, I'm going to find you and chat tarot with you because I have questions.
Absolutely. Anytime. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Greg asked, in your opinion, what is the best deck? But you sort of answered it in the ones that you like, but the one that you sent on Saint Soleil is really pretty. I'm looking at it now.
It's beautiful. They have two different, they've got the beginner one, and then they've got the more advanced one. The beginner one is great because it's got keywords with it. So if you're trying to learn the vibe of the cards, for somebody like me who's verbal, it helps you kind of bridge the gap between something that is straight up visual. Tarot is all about storytelling. So, I mean, it's really funny because, one of my dearest friends is super into crystals, which I've just never, it's just not my thing. And then it clicked with me. She's an earth sign, she's a Capricorn, and me, I'm all about storytelling. So it makes sense that tarot is something I really enjoy because it's all about telling stories. So the deck, I just saw a little thing pop up. I actually don't have the window open, but the Night Circus, that's the Phantom Wise deck. If you've enjoyed Night Circus, the Phantom Wise deck is really sweet. The thing that makes it a little bit trickier is if you're not experienced with tarot, it's a little bit harder to figure out what the correspondences are, what the meanings are, but that's fine. It's a great deck to have on hand. It's not expensive. Erin Morgenstern did the illustrations herself. So if you enjoyed the Night Circus, it's a beautiful jumping off for that. So of all the black and white decks, I like that one. I think it's sweet. It's whimsical. I like whimsy in my tarot too. I like whimsy.
Really quickly, and then we have some. I love the name of this person, Veronica Stan, in the Q&A. I'm actually going to take Donna, and then if you want to take Veronica Stan, Stacy.
Sure.
Donna just has a comment. Deanna, check out The Reckoning on YouTube. She is amazing and has an unbelievable collection of tarot cards. I love the one she mostly uses for her readings.
Perfect. Thank you. I will.
Okay.
Yeah, Veronica Stan asked, where do you find inspiration for all of the different murder mysteries Veronica and Stoker must solve? They are also distinct and atmospheric.
You know, it comes from just a life spent really, really loving mystery. I mean, some of the first books that I ever remember reading, I think I was 6 when I got my first abridged Hound of the Baskervilles. You know, I'm a child of the 70s, and they used to do these, they were like great illustrated classics, and they were abridged, and it was a chunky little paperback that you would get, and they would give you these, you know, kind of literary classics, but in a way that was modified, that a fairly good reader as a child could read them and enjoy them. And that was my introduction to Sherlock Holmes, was this abridged version of Hound of the Baskervilles. And I remember, you know, reading that the same time I was reading Encyclopedia Brown and Nancy Drew and Trixie Belden. And finally, one day, my grandmother gave me the entire set of Sherlock Holmes stories, all of those. And then one day she handed me Death on the Nile and said, here, I think you'll enjoy this. And I was probably, I don't know, about 9-10 years old. So that was my introduction to Agatha Christie. And so I have just always had a love for mystery. I also like just weird things. You know, if somebody is going to die in a bizarre way, I generally am intrigued by that, and will try to figure out a way to work it into a story. Or a lot of my books come from settings that I wanted to explore, or settings that I have enjoyed as a reader. I set one book, I think that's the 4th Veronica Speedwell, I want to say, in an island off the coast of Cornwall. And that is an homage to Victoria Holt and Daphne du Maurier, and writers that I read when I was a teenager, who would write things set in, you know, on islands off the coast of Cornwall. And so it was just a way for me to enjoy exploring a setting, because to me, that's the first thing, is I have to enjoy it. I'm lazy enough that I don't want to do research and put myself into a setting that I don't think is fun. So my settings are settings that I'm interested in and I want to read about. In Sinister Revenge, I have been fascinated by the Jurassic Coast in England, which is, it's part of Devon and Dorset, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a coastline that is kind of this crumbling chalk, and inside it are all of these fossils that have been there for millions and millions of years, and and they've been in the process of being discovered for quite a long time. If you're familiar with the tongue twister, She Sells Seashells by the Seashore, it's inspired by a woman called Mary Anning, who lived on the Jurassic Coast kind of around the time of Jane Austen, who used to dig these fossils right out of the side of the cliffs and sell them. And that's how she made money, is she was literally selling these things. And I thought that was just such a cool place and a cool vibe to explore. But then when I was reading about the Crystal Palace exhibition in London, which happened kind of midway through Victoria's reign, where Prince Albert spearheaded this huge exposition to showcase English trade and industry and innovation, there was what they called an iguanodon dinner. They had one gentleman commissioned a sculpture of an iguanodon, a model of this dinosaur large enough that they could hold a dinner party inside of it. And so I think 10 or 12 men sat around in their very formal tuxedos with the candelabra and their brandy and cigars, and they had dinner inside this dinosaur. And so in my mind, those two things linked up, this Jurassic Coast setting and this insane dinner party inside a dinosaur. And I thought, okay, those feel like a natural fit. And, this turned out to be the great book opportunity to put them together. So.
Sounds really cool. I was just looking at the cover of it because we could see it in your background, and I have it up on my computer. It looks a little different than your other ones because it's more of a neutral tone, at least it looks like on my computer. I do like the fossil stuff that I'm seeing on it. I wish I had a physical copy.
They gave me fossils on the cover. I asked them, they're very kind in the art department about asking me just for some thoughts. And of course, I don't have say over the covers. I have a very little preliminary input into where's this set? We always have a recurring motif kind of on the front of the covers, a little falling element. And at the front right there will be a suggestion of the setting. And they asked me for some ideas, and I said, what I'd really love is if you could work in some bones. I would love some bones. We're dealing with fossils in this one. And so they gave me a little dinosaur head and some little ammonites everywhere. It's super cute. You do need a physical copy. It's super cute in person. I love this one. I always think that each book is my favorite until I get the next one. And I'm like, oh, this is even better than the last one. So I love this one.
We do have a few audience questions. I'll start with the one that came first from the chat of who is your favorite actor?
Ooh. I don't think I have a favorite. I don't think I have a favorite actor. No, I don't have a favorite. There are people whose work I enjoy, but I'm too much of a Gemini to have a favorite because I could give you an answer and it'll change tomorrow. It'll absolutely change tomorrow.
Fair answer. Okay. Then we have another question in the chat from Greg. Have you ever read, and I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher this first author's Nima Flinter? Nim? I don't know how to. Niamh.
I think that's Neve. I think that's
Neve.
Okay. Nev, I told you I was going to butcher. I'm sorry. Or Astrid Wett's books. They're amazing and have similar writing style to you.
I have not. So thank you for the recommendation.
We love giving recommendations.
I know. It's book generosity. I love that.
Do you want to take the Q&A one, Jessica?
Yeah, got it. Hold on. I got it. Do you write on paper or type? Greg.
Oh, always straight onto the computer. The person who probably has had the single biggest influence in my entire career was the golf coach at my high school because he was the typing teacher. And I learned how to type on an IBM Selectric with blank keys. So you had to learn to type by touch. But the beauty of that is I can type about 100, 110 words a minute. So I write straight into the computer. I do all of my plotting and brainstorming on paper. And my favorite is use like 2 by 3 foot pads of newsprint and Sharpies and kind of work it all out, mind map it, do all kinds of things like that when I'm brainstorming. But then the actual writing is always onto the computer.
Okay. There's something in the chat. Veronica and Stoker bring so much joy. Do you have any ideal locations you'd like to see them travel for future adventures?
Ooh, yeah. I mean, there are a couple of places that I think would be awesome. I love the idea of getting them. The problem is they can never agree where to go. because he's always looking for, his natural history and his conservation, and she's looking specifically for butterflies. And so she doesn't necessarily want to go places, like at the beginning of Sinister Revenge, he's in Bavaria. And, she's going to tell you straight up, Bavaria is not the best place for butterfly hunting. She'd far rather be in a place like Costa Rica. So it would be figuring out a space that would work best for both of them. But yeah, I do have a few ideas tucked away, but it remains to be seen if we'll get them on the road or not.
I'm curious about butterfly hunting. Are you a butterfly enthusiast yourself? Oh, and then a question just came in the Q&A. I'll ask that, and then we can get to Lynn's question.
Okay. I love butterflies. I love to visit. If I'm in a city that has a vivarium, I love to go into them. They are amazing facilities that you can go into where the butterflies are just kind of flapping around in a fairly normal environment. There are all these plants and flowers and whatnot where you can, and it's always like a controlled access when you go in and when you go out, so that you don't have any hitchhikers coming home with you. And it's a way to interact with them and see species that you wouldn't ordinarily get to see in the wild. I plant things to encourage the pollinators. When I started writing the Veronica books, there are kits that you can order where you raise your own butterflies. They will send you the chrysalis, and you can rear them yourself. And you put them they send you the little habitat, and you put them in there, and then you just kind of take care of them until they hatch out and their little wings dry out, and then you go set them free. So I raised a batch of painted ladies, and I kept them on the kitchen table, which was probably not the best idea, because when butterflies are hanging out and metamorphosing, they smell bad. They smell really bad. Again, this is kind of a family lunch hour, so I'm not going to make any comparisons, but it's bad. It's a sewery smell that is not lovely. And that butterflies emit a substance called frass, and it is it's not lovely. It's not lovely, and you should not put it in your kitchen. And I did. So lesson learned. But I would never hunt them. So I think the idea, every once in a while will come across a beautiful one that has been mounted. But I only ever acquire them from people who mount them after they've died of natural causes. They're not people who collect trophies from the wild. They are people who only mount the butterflies once they've died of natural causes. They're not, in there with their killing jars, smothering them as people used to do.
I really like that it's of the natural, because whenever I've seen like any of the things at like Museum of Natural History or something, I'm kind of just like, it doesn't help. I had a biology friend major that's like, here's my bug collection. I went and got this, and he went to Costa Rica, and I was like,
yeah, there's a wonderful scientist who's on Instagram by the handle Butterfly Babe. And I have one of her specimens. It's beautifully mounted, and all of hers are ethically acquired. And so the idea is, rather than letting it rot, you mount it and let somebody enjoy it as art and appreciate it. And then hopefully they will, make the leap then to plant things that are going to be beneficial to pollinators and try to preserve the habitats and things like that. So so she's a great resource.
It looks like we have a lot of questions.
Yeah, we do. Stacey, want to get the first one from Lynn?
Sure. The first one's from Lynn, and asks, do you use a special software like Scrivener or just something like Word when you're typing?
Oh, I just use Word, although I switched about a year ago to Apple, and I am the bane of formatters, because I do not, I write as if I were typing. I hit the tab key. I am an old. I will hit that tab key and it drives them crazy. But they're very, very kind to me about the fact that they have to fix that then. It's a muscle memory thing, though. When you've been doing it that long, that when you come to the end of a paragraph, you hit return, you hit tab, you know, you hit enter, you hit tab, and yeah. So I feel bad for the people who have to fix it. But no, my life would probably be easier if I use Scrivener, because sometimes I do pull scenes out and rearrange them. But I feel like it's one of those things that would have a learning curve that might just make me want to yank my hair out. So I haven't ever attempted it. I know I have a lot of writer friends who absolutely swear by Scrivener and love it. So I'm nothing to go by. I just old school word processing program.
Okay. I love Angela Master's narration of your work. Did you have any input in selecting her for the narrator of this series? I have noticed that you had included her in one of your author notes or acknowledgements.
Yes, I have no input whatsoever in selecting her. She is just an amazing person that they found for me. When she gets ready to record, her director will send me an email and say, can you confirm the pronunciations of these things? They started doing that a few books ago so that I can confirm, which is lovely. But other than that, no. I did, however, get to choose the 2 narrators for Killers of a Certain Age. They sent me audition reels from various narrators, and we got to choose together, which was really exciting. And a lot of fun. But I think readers would absolutely mutiny if anything happened to Angel. They love her, and she does great things for these books. So she is the voice of Veronica.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You got the next one, Stacey. I love this question.
It's a good question. This from Veronica Stan. How is it different to write the contemporary Killers of a Certain Age versus your Victorian mysteries?
Oh, you know, the thing that was scary about writing Killers is I mean, I've got like 18 historical books under my belt. I know what my historical voice is. I did not know what my contemporary voice was going to be. I didn't even know if I had one. So when I sat down to write this book, it was absolutely terrifying trying to figure out what do I sound like? Who am I? And I struggled when I first started writing that book. And I remember I had taken a bash at one particular scene, maybe 3 or 4 times, and it wasn't clicking, and it wasn't clicking, and it wasn't clicking. And I finally realized it's because I was trying to write it, and what I needed to do was tell it. So I said, okay, I'm going to toss out what I've done before, and I'm just going to tell this story. And I wrote the scene again in a conversational way, telling it. And I handed it off to my husband because I had zero objectivity about this at this point. Handed it off to my husband, and he read it and started laughing. And he said, babe, this is your Twitter feed. Like, this is exactly how you sound on Twitter. And I went, okay, nailed it. That's my voice then. So that was what unlocked it for me, is when I realized I needed to stop trying to narrate or trying to write, and I had to just tell.
That's so cool. Man,
it was terrifying, Jessica. It was terrifying.
But well, I mean, really, like it's amazing. And one thing I have to say that like really always amazes me is how much joy people do get from your books, and I do recommend them all the time. And you know, like I'll see people.
Thank you. That means a huge amount, because that's why I do them, you know, and that's what I put into them, and that's what I want readers to get out from them. It's just pleasure. I want you to enjoy. I want you to have a couple of hours where you were in this world and not this world. You know, I want you to have that escape and just enjoy them. That's what they're for.
Yeah, I want to know if, you know, when I guess I want to know like what you enjoy. Like, do you get to read? Do you know, what do you watch? What do you enjoy? Like, what are some of the things that you devour?
Okay, when I really don't want to think and I just want to watch, I love Korean variety shows. Like when they're doing some sort of competition, because they're usually just like really nice to each other. And it's very restful, and I have to focus on what's going on because I have to read the subtitles because I don't understand Korean. So I can't multitask. I have to watch what's going on the screen. I have absolutely, like right now, of course, Ted Lasso is back and I'm so happy. I love me some Ted Lasso. And I have loved Apple Plus is killing it right now because the adaptation of Slow Horses is phenomenal. The second season dropped, I think about 2 months ago. And so it's not only the series to watch, but it's also the series to read, because there are several Slow Horses books by Mick Herron, and the way that they're doing with the adaptation, it is just phenomenal. I don't watch anything super violent, and I don't watch horror unless it's, comic, which doesn't happen too often. The furthest I will go is like Crimson Peak, when Guillermo del Toro did that, because it was an homage to the Gothic, and even that messed me up for a little while, man. The ghosts were just too much. So
I always see that.
I always like, that's my bar. I don't like anything too violent or too scary. A little suspense is great, but let's not go crazy.
I was gonna, because you talked about the variety shows. I became obsessed with Physical 100 on Netflix.
My God, we watched it last week.
Thank you.
How much were you rooting for the person who won?
And
I was all about that.
I enjoyed who won. It wasn't who I was originally rooting for, but I was saying, and I was just like, no, like it, because I was like, someone's like, what is it about? I'm like, it's Squid Games meets like Great British Bake Off, in the sense of how wholesome they are with each other.
That is 100% what it is.
So when you said that, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, we watched it last week, and I was like, this is literally, because I turned in the next Veronica book after this, turned it in, launched this book, and I was like, I literally need to watch something where I don't have to think. And my husband said, I found us the perfect show. And there it is. It rolled up, and I was like, yes.
My husband found it, and I was like, oh, maybe. Like, I don't care about working out or that.
I know. I wasn't sure about it either. And then it started, and I was like, oh my God,
I know.
This is perfect.
After everything, they're really good with the editing, because I'm like, we got to watch the next one. Like,
oh, I know. That's the worst part, though, is that's how they suck you in, because you're like, we have to watch the first 5 minutes to see who got eliminated, or who won this challenge. Yeah.
It's like, what happened to Agent H?
I know. I was really rooting for Agent H.
So was I.
So disappointed he got knocked out so early.
It was wild. So
I need another season of this. I
was like, no, like they talk about why they came and the overcoming stuff. I was like, my heart. Oh my God. I'm so glad I have another fan. Yay.
I know. I love those. And of course, the more you watch of those, the more they show you. And I loved, there was a Korean variety show called New World, which was absolutely bonkers. And it was where they took these Korean celebrities and put them on an island and basically created this little society. And they had all these challenges and had to run around and exist in this little utopia that they'd made. But then they would throw challenges at them. And it was just, again, bonkers. And you just read the subtitles and enjoy your life. And then, so that's what I like when I don't want to have to think about anything. Because it's wholesome. It's enjoyable.
Yeah. Somebody wants to know, have you watched Murdoch Mysteries? I think Ovation calls it The Artful Detective. Good fun.
No, I have not. I have been catching up on a lot of, like, Acorn keeps dropping all of these series that feature middle-aged women sleuthing around and solving mysteries. And so every time you turn around, they're dropping another one of these. So I keep trying to catch up with all of those. I have not made it to, I don't actually watch, I don't think I watch any historical mystery, because I try to keep my writing separate, and there's always the worry that you're going to pick up something and it's going to stick in your head. So I try to kind of keep that separate. And I know Murdoch is, I want to say late Victorian, if memory serves. I feel like it's the kind of thing that I would enjoy watching if I wasn't writing something that is adjacent.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I absolutely think that makes sense. So let me see, I have so many things I always want to talk to you about. And it's like, it's very difficult to kind of
just contain it in this.
Yeah, no, for sure.
We're going to have to do a marathon session one of these days.
Oh my God, we totally are.
Like a
So
sleepover, like a
what?
sleepover event.
Yeah.
Yes, we need to make that happen.
Yes.
So I guess like one of my questions was, so approaching this particular Veronica book, did you find, especially like we'd mentioned, you know, after the last one, did you find after all of the bombshells that went off, it difficult to sort of approach where you wanted it to go? Or have you kind of always known that it was gonna go in this direction?
Oh no, this was super easy. This was like slipping into a warm bath, because I knew exactly what was going to happen. I knew exactly how I was starting it. And it's so much easier when you have the beginning and you've got the hook for the new book and you're like, got it. I know where I'm going in. And I knew when I ended the one before this, exactly where this one was going to start. And so that made it really, really easy just to slip in and pick right back up. And there had been, there was a fair bit of angst in getting this one finished because I was trying to finish up Killers at the same time and, trying to kind of alternate which one I was working on. And they're so different. And at the same time, the editor who had worked on, she did not acquire the first Veronica Speedwell book, but she ended up finishing the editing on it. And then she worked on all of the others up until this one, left the company right when I was in the throes of working on this one. So I got a new editor and, that was a whole thing. And I love my new editor. I loved my former editor. I love my new editor. So I'm incredibly fortunate. There's just a kind of a getting to know you period where you have to sort of, hit the ground running with this. And I ended up being delayed a little bit. It threw me because I was trying to finish off Killers and trying to get this one into my new editor. And bless her heart, what I sent her was just a mess when she saw it. And she was still very, very kind about that book and incredibly helpful getting it into shape and getting it ready to go. Which we had very little time to do before then we had to launch Killers because Killers was going out into the world.
So,
I love
go
your
ahead.
comments, Donna, of
Go for it.
pajama party, the celebrate porn, which I'm all into, and that she discovered the Speedwell books at Murder by the Book in Houston, and she has the whole collection.
We love Murder by the Book. I am a huge fan of libraries and independent bookstores, both, because they just, y'all do God's work. Because everybody who loves books and who works at an independent bookstore or works at a library, you're always trying to play matchmaker and connect readers with the books you think they're going to like. And that is just a glorious thing. And Murder by the Book is it's one of those bookstores I have such a soft spot for. I love them.
So I have another question here, and I love this question so much. Tanis wants to know, and we've only got a few minutes left,
good
so
question.
you may very well have just gotten the last question. If given the option, would you like to see Veronica Speedwell made into a mini series or film series?
Oh, I would. Just off the top of my head, I think it would function better as a streaming series as opposed to films. I just think the way the stories are structured, I think that would be an easier and better transition, especially seeing what they've done with, again, with Slow Horses, which is a series of novels, and how they've basically taken one book and adapted it to an entire season of like 6 or 8 episodes. And it seems to work really, really well that way. And I think the stories would lend themselves to that really well. But, if you sell the option, it's out of your hands. It's up to the producer who takes the project on what the format actually ends up being. So it would be completely, outside my purview if it were to be adapted, what form that takes.
Oh, good question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, go for it.
We have a
Q&A.
So we'll make this the last question.
Yeah.
I'm always learning new words from you. Thank God for the Kindle dictionary function. Do you have to search for the perfect word when you're trying to describe something, or how did you build your vocabulary?
Oh, that is a great question. Some of it is just stuff that I absorb when I'm reading. If I come across a word and I'm like, ooh, that's phenomenal. I love that word. I just tuck it away. I also subscribe to the Wordsmith newsletter. Every day, Wordsmith sends you, they theme the week. And then every day gets you a different word in that theme. And, most of the time I'll just skim them and bin them. But every once in a while I come across a word that's just utterly perfect. And I'm like, oh, that's a fabulous word. And more people need to be saying this word because we don't want it to fall out of usage. So let's throw it in a book. So
Veronica Stan says, agree. Seeing the term fit of the Morbs in this book made my day.
Oh my God. And that's one of those, that's just a piece of Victorian slang, having a fit of the Morbs. And I think it's such a great evocative, it's like when you watch Breakfast at Tiffany's and she talks about having the mean reds. A fit of the Morbs is just when you're so over it. And you're blue and you're feeling melancholy and you cannot even. It's the Victorian way of saying I cannot even.
I like that. And then Lynn says, do you follow Haggard Hawks on Twitter? He comes up with the most delicious words.
Haggard Hawks is just yes. That account is absolute genius, and I love them. And they will throw shade like nobody. I mean, word people are the shadiest people, and I love it. And they will insult people without them ever, like they'll subtweet, and people don't even realize that they've been insulted. It's so elegantly done. Haggard Hawks is fantastic. I highly recommend them.
Well, I want to thank you for spending your tea time with us. Is it tea or coffee? Remind me.
Tea, always, never coffee.
Yes. And your St. Patty's Day with us.
Yes.
Yeah, I totally forgot. Well, at least I have a little green. I have a little green right there.
Oh, you have no idea. Usually I'm the first one wearing green on St. Patrick's Day.
She's
and today I am not only not wearing green, but I am wearing an orange skirt with cats with bat wings.
Okay. You know what? You are living your best life, Jessica. You are living your best life.
Well, thank you so much to Deanna Raybourn.
Thank you.
Sinister Revenge, the Veronica Speedwell book. Check out Killers of Certain Ages. Also awesome. Check out all of Veronica's books.
I was going to say all the books.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
All right, everybody. Have
Thank you all for attending.
Wherever you are. Bye.